Again, my name is Ahmed. I represent a spin-off out of King Abdullah University of Science and Technology in Saudi Arabia, KAUST. And we're in the business of data analytics based on parameters and counters collected from 4G, 5G networks. Today's presentation is going to focus on a specific interface within the O-RAN stack, the so-called Y1 interface, where we see immense value awaiting to be unlocked. And consequently, that's something that will require rigorous and meaningful standardization. So the agenda for my talk over the next few minutes is to tell you a little bit about what we mean by the linear business model. It's it bears a bit of difference from standardized or conventional wisdom when it comes to RIC applications. And we'll give you some glimpse of the motivation for the need to standardize Y1 and some of the gaps that needs to be tackled in a standardization effort. All right. So this is the architectural diagram that we are all fond of. If you've noticed, probably back in March 2023, this new Y1 interface was introduced, where data can be extracted, communicated over to Y1 consumers from the near real-time RIC. And if you think about it, conventionally speaking, everyone has been trying to digest data or ingest data in the RIC from the DU, from the RU, or even from the CU, and crunch the numbers, figure out how something can be done in order to optimize the RAN performance. So it's more or less a closed loop kind of control where data is coming from the RAN, it's being ingested by AI models over here, and then sent back to the RAN to improve its performance, which is really great. What we're trying to promote over here and evangelize is another linear or open loop kind of model where the data is being fed to the near real-time RIC. It's digested over there, crunched, and then some really interesting insights can be consumed out of the network and add value to some other market verticals. Let me give you some examples. So many examples out there that are all related to analytics, which can be extracted from 4G, 5 or 5G open RAN networks. So retail, mobility, events, hospitality, airports, and you name it. Those analytics, those parameters that you can actually extract from the RAN can help understand people proximity, their mobility behaviors, their movement patterns, their footfall, proximity, and even location analytics, which is all have, or can bear a lot of value and add a lot of intelligence to how these different market verticals operate their businesses. Yeah. So someone will ask probably why Y1, not our apps? Well, it's not really either Y1 or our apps. They both have their own advantages and sweet spots. So it's not really an either or kind of question, but I would say it's an and. Both have to be there. Maybe the introduction of Y1 really meant to make it more convenient for third parties, smaller players or collaborate, or let's say companies working closely with mobile carriers to offer their third-party applications. It's a neat, clean, and explicitly decoupled way of digesting data that the mobile carrier offers. So it's really the mobile carrier empowering an entirely new market space through their O-RAN stack. So that's why we think Y1 is a very neat and elegant solution. Having said that, it's still very early on, and there's a lot of work that has to be done in order to standardize Y1 properly within the O-RAN space or domain. The first one is related, obviously, to authentication and authorization of Y1 consumers. You don't really want anyone accessing that data lake or that, let's say, repository of data without proper authentication and authorization in place. The ORAN spec does refer somehow to a 3GPP spec or standard, but if you go and look at that 3GPP tech spec, it's not really, it's probably more applicable to monolithic architectures and doesn't really seem to offer a nicely and neatly thought of way of doing it on Y1. So it seems just to be adding more complications. The second aspect of standardization that needs to be tackled in our view is how you actually report the data related to the data reporting mechanism. If you really want to do mobility, footfall, proximity, location analytics, then it's really good to get data on a per UE level, aggregated, but aggregated on per UE levels. So some effort has to be done in order to, standardize how the UE level data is offered while still observing the best practices in privacy. That will get aggregated at the mobile carrier side before it gets provisioned or, let's say, relayed to third-party applications. How does that aggregation happen? If aggregation happens by the Y1 consumers, how does the per UE level data get smashed and hashed and treated and processed to preserve privacy? This has to be also taken into consideration. I would also say that it's not only applicable to Y1, but the actual parameters that can be made available by the RAN in the RIG to X app, R app, or even Y1 consumers or developers is not very clear. There is no clear-cut set of parameters that are available. Even practice, different RIG implementations have different ways of and formats as well as sets of parameters that can be made available. So there are some preliminary suggestions of what Y1 data encounters could include or cover, but that needs to be taken further in order to have a clearly cut set of parameters that can actually make sense and add value to the number of applications that we talked about earlier. And finally, the final aspect of, or let's say the last gap that we see in terms of standardization when it comes to Y1 is related to interoperability and compliance testing. I don't think we have seen real or meaningful treatment of Y1 interoperability testing. For sure, we haven't really seen any, plug fests actually covering that interface at all. It's really recent. So it's an opportunity to incorporate it into interoperability testing documents and compliance testing going forward. With that, I would like to thank you for attention. Again, I do apologize for not being able to attend due to time difference and traveling. As you can tell, I'm giving this recording this small talk from my hotel room, and I do encourage you to reach out to me or to us through this email. We'll definitely, would love to interact with you and as a group, as an IEEE community, this is a nice initiative that calls for action. And yes, good luck with the rest of the presentations.